Yes, the people. My name is Bogdan and I come to you with this mustache beard sort of thing that my girlfriend really loves, but I do not. So, first question today, do you? Let me know.
The number of people entering the UK illegally in small boats has more than quadrupled in just the last 2 years.
So I'm an immigrant, a legal one. I came to the UK about 15 years ago. I worked hard to earn a living and eventually to be a British citizen, like so many of you. But when we speak about people who are forced to flee their homes and to leave literally everything behind, it's a little bit hard to ignore the human-centric side of the situation. Parliament introduced a new bill a couple of weeks ago, and this aims to address illegal immigration here in the UK. Specifically, those illegal immigrants trying to enter the UK on small boats.
Plain for anyone to see that the British people have had enough of this situation of thousands of people coming here illegally at huge cost to the taxpayer and undermining our laws and, in fact, the British generosity. That needs to stop. We need to take necessary steps now to ensure that if you're coming here illegally, you'll be detained and you'll be removed, and that's what this bill will do.
This news, just like old news, comes with its own bit of controversy, obviously. But in this case, there is a tangible concern about human rights and international asylum rules. But let me give you a little bit of context to this bill, why it was introduced, what it attempts to tackle, and what it may or may not be able to change. We need to first understand this UK small boat immigration illegally situation. So here it is. Sorry. Since the 1990s, asylum seekers have been coming to the UK from the European continent, and only just a few asylum seekers would enter the UK legally. However, over time, both the UK and the French governments have stepped up their security. Or so they say. With patrols, with fences and with heat sensors. But unfortunately, none of these were able to stop asylum seekers sneaking into the UK through, let's say, trucks or trains. Which is why since about 2020 more and more asylum seekers have started arriving to the UK via small boat via the English Channel. But let's highlight that for a second. Genuine asylum seekers risking their lives, their children, to cross a good bit of ocean by a tiny inflatable dinghy boat to make it into the UK to make a better life for themselves.
The new legislation is going to very clearly say, if you come to this country illegally, with only a very few exceptions, you are going to be detained. Anyone that comes after today, you are going to be detained and you will then be deported and never allowed to re-enter this country again.
Now, this is legally speaking problematic for a few reasons. For starters, the Home Office or the government here in the UK just does not have the resources to process all of these claims, and as such, there's now a massive backlog of about 160,000 applications that have not been answered. The British government just simply does not have the capacity to hold so many asylum seekers. Where will they be put up? How will we care for them in the time in which they're here? So they've resorted to either cramming them into processing centers, as they call them, or if budget permitted it, they would book out entire hotels, filling them with immigrants. And this has become a real political headache for those conservatives who generally act tough on immigration, which is one of the fundamental stances of the Conservative Party. Many of their voters do not like the sight of immigrants coming up in small boats on the beautiful beaches or stealing their jobs. That is a good chunk of the UK society, sadly.
We've had to use hotel accommodation at considerable cost to the British taxpayer and to huge inconvenience to local communities.
If you're wondering why the government is fixated on stopping small boats and hotel accommodation for migrants, here's why.
This is literally the fault line that is dividing communities in Britain at the moment around the accommodation of asylum seekers.
So, successive Conservative governments have paid a lot more attention to this crisis. And in one of his speeches at the start of this year, Prime Minister Sunak even outlined that stopping small boats was one of his 5 key priorities.
Those illegally crossing the Channel are not directly fleeing a war-torn country, or persecution, or an imminent threat to life. They have travelled through safe European countries. They are paying people smugglers huge sums to make this dangerous and sometimes tragic journey.
But are there really that many illegal immigrants in the UK? Apparently. In 2022, more than 45,000 people came into the UK via the tunnel, and the government estimates that that more realistic number would be around 60,000 people. Following up on the immigration statistics, the Refugee Council explains that actually only about 60% of those were recognized as legitimate refugees. What happened to the other 40%? Last year, for example, the Home Secretary introduced the Nationalities and Border Act, saying that anyone who arrives illegally will be deemed inadmissible and returned to their own country or another safe country. It's a big statement. Which other country does the UK have a deal with in order to receive the support for the illegal immigration crisis? Which other country after Brexit will actually help us in that?
Well, where on earth are you going to deport people to if you haven't got any agreements? It was a reasonable point.
This new law, the Nationality and Borders Act, attempted to address the asylum seeker problem by essentially giving the government more power to send people back. A harsh reality has been even harsher, rephrased by the current Home Secretary. They will not stop coming here until
the world knows that if you enter Britain illegally, you will be detained and swiftly removed.
But here's the big question now. How? By creating two categories of refugees. Group numero uno are those who come to the UK directly from a country or territory where their life was genuinely threatened, where their security is at risk, and they have immediately presented themselves to authorities in the UK upon arrival. Or group number two, the refugees who had traveled through a different third safe country where they could have reasonably been expected to claim asylum or did not claim asylum without delay upon entering in the UK. To note, the difference between these two categories is the amount of time they are actually allowed to spend in the UK from the moment of processing. So that's what the most recent legislation on refugees is all about. I'm glad you're up to date. Under the new bill, anyone arriving in the UK illegally will no longer have the right to claim asylum, and the government will now have the power to simply remove them to a safe third country without even having to process their asylum claim. No, honestly, I want to know which countries have okayed this. None. And you find out why in a bit. There's an even bigger question now. Is that right? Is that fair? To simply turn people away with no right of appeal? What do you think? Leave it in the comments. Moving on. The government also has the power to detain asylum seekers for 28 days with no bail. And if the individual has not been removed from the UK by the 28th day, only then will they be granted bail. Wait, pause on the script. What? I think it goes a bit, if I understood correctly, I think it goes a little bit like this. Hello and welcome to the UK's jail. You will stay here in this jail until we send you packing, mate. Okay? Alright? No. But I guess that's the kind of treatment that we kind of have to expect now towards refugees, towards asylum seekers. In fact, the Prime Minister even decided that this was the perfect way to present the bill to the public.
Full control of our borders will allow us to decide who to help and to provide safe and legal routes for those most in need.
But picture this scenario. If a person, bear with me, this is not going to be nice, but bear with me for the example. If a person is currently enslaved in a brothel and they were brought here, perhaps illegally, by force, forced to work in the sex trade, do you think that this bill will help them, these people, these modern slaves, come forward and escape the sex traffickers? Dude, no, honestly not. It really puts them off. It really scares them to come forward. That dark and morbid situation has only two choices. It's either number one, come forward and be deported almost immediately, or number two, continue to have sex with 30 individuals per day. This is the moment where human rights are not being met or respected.
As far as the Modern Slavery Act is concerned, that will not apply if you've come to the country illegally. So in a way, I should be welcoming what the government is saying, but I don't. Because they even admit, as they put this legislation forward, that they are pushing the limits of international law.
The UN's refugee agency has stated that it's profoundly concerned about this bill, and it amounts to an asylum ban basically here in the UK. According to them, is a clear breach of refugee convention. In fact, the bill may also break the European Convention of Human Rights entirely.
All I can say is, we have tried it every other way and it has not worked. So I say again, my policy is very simple. It is this country and your government who should decide who comes here, not criminal gangs.
So let's keep an eye out on the situation. Let's make some noise, man. Share your thoughts on the absurdity of contemporary Britain laws. Thanks for your support though. Remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And I'll see you next week on a new video where we tackle yet another UK crisis. Housing. Or more specifically, why you can't afford one. I'll see you next week. Later!